Considering you can't get a bad camera in 2026, it should be pretty easy for me to tell you what the best camera is for a professional. And we're going to do that. We're going to work out the best brand and camera model for professional photographers. Now, if you're an amateur, you can still watch this. It might be interesting. You might learn something new. However, my buying advice to you is work out what your budget is, buy what you like the look of. Doesn't matter. If you enjoy using it, you're going to have more fun. As a pro, there's some little tweaky bits that we need to get right. Otherwise, our life will be a living hell. So let's go through this. You need pen and paper. You're going to be making your decisions alongside me. Let me know in the comments what you land on. The first and probably biggest point we're going to go through is price. What's your budget for your camera body? And then double it because you need at least 2. I personally need 3 and sometimes 5, but you need at least 2. Once you know that price, you've already worked out the level we're buying at here. For me personally, I buy secondhand rather than brand new almost all the time. My Blackmagics I buy brand new because secondhand, they're not so much cheaper because they're not devalued enough that the VAT difference makes any real meaningful difference. But for everything else, like my main camera, which is this over here, I buy it used most of the time. Because yes, you can save money on VAT in the UK and all the rest of it, but ideally I want to be purchasing once that depreciation has hit an all-time low. I'm not paying depreciation. I want to buy a camera that's good to go and has already lost most of its value. Me buying the latest GFX instead of the one I've got, which is one of the older ones, isn't going to make more money, but having waited and saved, I've saved that money. It's great. Everything's tax deductible, but you can't justify what you're buying because it's tax deductible. Spending 10 grand on a camera does not take 10 grand off your tax bill. It takes 10 grand off your taxable income. Very different thing. You're saving 2 grand really in the UK if you're on 20% tax, but it's not financial advice, not tax advice. So I've decided already, for me, my budget is this for 2 cameras. So that's what that is. That's what I can afford right now. And it's not cleaning up my bank account. That's my budget. That's what we've got set aside for this project. And I know I'm buying used because I'm tight and I wouldn't buy a new car, so why would I buy a new camera? Seems silly to me. You may differ. And let me just add, having bought about 20 to 30 professional cameras throughout my career, I've only ever had one fail, and it was a Blackmagic 6K that I bought from MPB, and they just swapped it out straight away. Now, the next thing, we've got our budget and we know whether we're buying new or used. What have all my mates got? And what do the rental houses stock? Okay, so what do my friends have? If all of my friends are shooting phase 1, I'd probably go to phase 1. Most of my friends shoot on a Fuji or a Canon. So if Paul's in here and I want to borrow one of his cameras, he's got Canon cameras too. It all kind of works as a nice interchangeable ecosystem. These cameras here, my video ones, they use Canon lenses. So Canon's a good choice for me. And I've also got the GFX as well for the bigger work, but that also fits on a camera system. This here also takes a Canon. So that's a major part. What else can I do with it? Where else can I get stuff from? What's really important as a commercial professional photographer is what do rental houses stock? Because you might have heard earlier, I need 3 to 5 cameras. Often we run 2 sets at one time for stills. We'll have 2 different still sets at 2 different angles. Each of those sets needs a backup camera. So there's 4 cameras. If the rental house doesn't have those, I've got to buy them in for what, those 2 times a year I need it. Likewise with lenses, we've all done this. Oh, I'm going to buy that lens for the job. I'm going to buy that lens for the job. You buy the weird niche lens for the job and you don't ever really use it again to make another penny. Rent it. I own this 90mm Actar for this camera, and I think it's called a 45 to 105 zoom lens for the Fuji. That's it. If I need something else, I'll rent it. Because it's rare that I do, so when I do, I don't want to have that money just sat in stock in my studio with all the other junk I've collected over the years irresponsibly. See what they rent. See what they have. I mean, in the UK, I know you can get the Canon 5DS, you can get the R5 system, you can get the Blackmagic system. All 3 of those will take an EF lens one way or another. So there's a great ecosystem you can start buying into and renting. If I was starting out and I got a couple of grand, maybe 2 grand for a camera, I'd buy 2 Canon 5DS bodies or 5DSLs, whichever ones, doesn't matter. Because I know I can get a Blackmagic, my lenses will work with that for the video stuff. I've got the Canon lenses which work with these as well. We can rent them, they're available, and everyone knows how to use them, which is the next really important part. What software does your camera work with? Might sound irrelevant, but throughout the world, the digital technicians, their standard software is Capture One. Everyone uses it. I don't care, you might think Lightroom's better, or the new DaVinci thing's looking like an absolute Lightroom destroyer, but Capture One is the standard, so we can't use Hasselblad because it doesn't tether. So there, Hasselblad's gone. It's out the window. The only time you can use Hasselblad is if you have your own personal Digitech who's guaranteed to know how to use the software. I've got a shoot next week. I haven't got my crew hired in yet because it was last minute. I don't know who my Digitech is. The fact that I can use Capture One means I can use any Digitech in the land. If I had to use the focus thing, it narrows it down quite quickly. Although I do lust for a Hasselblad. So we should have really narrowed it down by now. We should know what we can afford, the brand, and what's usable and what's available in our area for rental houses. We're probably down to about 3 brands at this point, and let me know in the comments below what camera you end up with from this. Resolution and sensor size. Now, I did a video on sensor size recently and I angered the entire Micro Four Thirds community. Let me be very clear on sensor size. Bigger is better. Always. Always. Bigger is better. If I chop this sensor here down to Micro Four Thirds size, do you really think the image is going to be as good? Of course not. Bigger's better, but bigger's expensive. The lenses for bigger cameras are more expensive. The file storage of bigger cameras is more expensive. So think about this. The reason I have a medium format camera with high resolution is not for aesthetic, is not for look, it's for post-production. Because every single one of my images, the background gets replaced. We shoot it on the real background anyway, but we always have to replace it because it needs to be perfect and no paper background or wooden background ever is. So we do that. We also mask every item so we can grade each part individually and really control it. Doing that on anything but a medium format 100 megapixel sensor becomes painful. Ideally, I'd want the Phase 1 IQ 150 back, but it's too expensive because it's outside of my budget. Worst case scenario, I want a 50 megapixel full frame sensor. That's kind of like, it's painful but doable. Anything less than 50 megapixels we found to be an absolute nightmare for our style of post-production. But if you're a lifestyle photographer, and that's the commercial work you do, and it's more of a color grade you're going for, yeah, sure, save money, get a smaller sensor. It's not as good as a Phase 1, but you'll save a bag of money and you'll still get the same amount of work, really, in the grand scheme of things. You're not going to lose jobs because you didn't buy a Phase 1, are you? Lenses. What lenses does it take? Like I've mentioned earlier, the Canon EOS 5D series, the reason it's so good and versatile for pros starting out, 1, it's cheap, 2, rental houses support it, and 3, this Blackmagic system here takes the same lenses on the same lens mount, and it shoots 6K RAW at 120 FPS, and I've shot TVCs on this. You can get a real good ecosystem going. Think about that. What lenses are available? You can also chuck them on the back of things like this, like a Cambo Actus. We shot the Johnson & Johnson's campaign on this, which is a big one, with a 5DS on the back. Now, lens type and shutter type, I'm going to kind of swing in together here. For some people, if you're shooting action with flash outdoors, a global shutter or a leaf shutter, if within your budget, might be the only way to go. That is a major consideration. For what I do inside a studio, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've got the blinds open today, which is why the light's all over the place and it's getting a bit hot and bright in here, but doesn't matter. We can have any type of shutter we like. As long as we can sync at 125th, we're golden. But it might matter to you. Likewise, does your camera system offer technical lenses, tilt shift lenses and the likes? Does it offer the correct type of macro? Can you get a probe lens on it if that's the sort of vibe you're going for? Personally, big fan of the probe lens, using it all the time at the moment. Now, you've probably realised I've not mentioned autofocus yet, and that's because I'm old. And as far as I'm concerned, since the 5D Mark III, autofocus has been sufficient. But for you, it might be a massive deal. If you're shooting sports commercially or real action sort of work, that could be a bigger deal breaker than the other ones, and you need to prioritise that. I reckon I could shoot the Olympics in a 5D Mark III. You may disagree. I'm old. I'm just behind the times, really, aren't I? But that's fine. I'd be comfortable doing it like that. I wouldn't be worried. I'd be more worried that with a complex autofocus system, I'd get the settings wrong and focus on nothing but my shoes. Now, these last two matter more than you might expect. We do a lot of composite work, which means this camera here can't move. If I have to move the battery out, in and out, and change it, that can be a real problem. So it's bus powered. We put a big Sony NPF battery here and it will run for half a day on it. Mirrorless cameras eat batteries. Is there an option to bus power it or mains power it? And don't think you can just do it through the tether cable. It ruins your tether cables and it causes all sorts of issues. Someone will say it's never happened to me, yet don't wait to find out. Trust me, this came from LS Digi. He is the authority on this. Can you bus power it? And also, if you're shooting mixed media, what media do you shoot to? I like these Black Magics because we're shooting straight into an SSD drive. I'll edit this, dump it, and then delete it. That's it. This here, we shoot straight to computer. We don't use the memory card. I don't even know what cards, if it takes cards at all, it has. Straight to the computer. We don't do that. But you need to know for yourself, what does it record to? What media can it record to? What is the cost implication on that? Hard drives are expensive. I've just bought two 2 terabyte hard drives for £355 each. That is painful. It wasn't painful before AI ruined everything for us, but now it's painful. So there's another consideration. Now, from all of that, you might now be within 1 or 2 models. And here's what I'd say. If you're down to a few different models, I'd assume by this point the sensor size should be the same, the resolution should be the same, and the brand should be down to a couple. You know, in the UK, you can rent a Canon and sometimes a Sony, a Canon and sometimes a Fuji for full frame. For medium format, you can rent a Phase 1 and a Fuji. It really does narrow it right down into what is a sensible and viable choice for camera equipment. There just aren't that many options. So having got rid of all these different things, you're down to a couple. I'd go with whatever is the cheapest. Or if it's very similar, what do I like the look of most? Because any technical specification between 2 50 megapixel cameras or 500 megapixel cameras will be so negligible, I would choose based on something else. I wouldn't choose on the image quality when it gets down to that point. I'd go, yeah, do you know what? I really like the aesthetic of the Fuji, or I really like the look of the Hasselblad and I don't tether, so yeah, I'm getting a Hasselblad. I like the iconic brand. I like all of this. Let's just get it. It helps to enjoy shooting with your camera because you're going to be with it for a long time. My cameras last me like 5-6 years per body and we shoot a lot. So just, you know, there's nothing wrong with that as well. Let me know in the comments below what you came up with. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.